Yes.
Okay. So welcome back, everyone. We are very happy to have Annapriya Saha from HRI, and he's going to tell us about double soft theorems in generalized bijoint scalar theories. So Arnab, if there's any question in the chat, I will tell you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so go on. Yeah.
First of all, I'd like to thank all the organizers for giving me this wonderful opportunity to present our work here. So today I'll talk about double soft theorems in generalized biadjoint scalars. This is an upcoming work, a work in progress with Mohammad Abhishek, Subramania Hegre, and Professor Dilip Jatkar. So let me begin by giving a short introduction and motivation behind our work. CHY, or Kachazo-Heiwan formalism, is one of the most remarkable contemporary developments in S-matrix program. It was introduced some 6-7 years back, and needless to say, since then, it has revolutionized our understanding of scattering amplitude over the years. Using this formalism, several quantum field theory amplitudes can be computed using integral representations over moduli space of punctured Riemann spheres. CHY is elegant in different aspects. It is applicable to a large variety of non-supersymmetric theories, including scalars, gluons, and gravitons. Using this formalism, scattering amplitudes can be computed, replacing the conventional technique of using Feynman diagrams, which we know is often laborious and difficult to handle. Several important properties of S-matrix, like color kinematic duality, double copy relations, etc., are manifested easily in this formalism, which otherwise are inconspicuous in the standard Lagrangian descriptions. Studies of important properties of S-matrix, like factorization, soft limits, collinear limits, etc., can be done very conveniently using this CHY formalism. Most importantly, it offers a new insight to scattering amplitudes without use of Lagrangian description. And although initially it was introduced for tree-level scattering for massless fields, later there have been subsequent developments to include loop corrections as well as massive fields. Scattering equations, which are very important in CHY, map kinematic space of Mandelstam invariants to moduli space of punctured Riemann spheres. And recently, Kachazo, Early, Guevara, and Mizera, these authors, have introduced generalization of scattering equations, which are now defined on higher dimensional projective spaces Cpk-1, where k being greater than or equal to 2. And k equal to 2 reduces to the original CHY formalism. Standard scattering equations, which are defined on the space of n points on Cp1, can also be thought of as scattering equations for n points on Cpn-3. For example, if we have n equal to 5 or 5-point scattering amplitude, scattering equations on Cp1 can be related to scattering equations on Cp2. So this itself serves a good motivation for studying generalizations to higher dimensional projective spaces. A well-studied example with this generalization, and perhaps the only known example so far, is the biadjoint scalar amplitudes. And it is these biadjoint scalar amplitudes that we will be talking in somewhat detail later as we go on. Studying soft limits have various aspects. It helps us to understand the factorization properties of amplitudes and corresponding boundary structures of the underlying moduli space. And in this work, we explore simultaneous double soft theorem for biadjoint scalar amplitudes. Mainly, we are restricted to k equal to 3, but as we will show, many of our results are generalizable to higher k. And this is the outline of my talk. First, I will give a lightning review of CHY. Then I will briefly say about the extensions made by CEGM. Then I'll show how to study soft limits. And finally, I'll come to the main part of our work, that is the double soft theorems. And at this stage, I must mention, please feel free to stop me at any point with questions or comments. So scattering amplitudes are expressed in terms of Mandelstam variables, SAB, and these Mandelstam variables form a kinematic space. And for n-point scattering amplitude, there are n into n-3 by 2 number of independent scattering Mandelstam invariants, and that is also equal to the dimension of this kinematic space. The essential idea of CHY is to map the kinematic space to the moduli space of all n-punctured Riemann spheres by this holomorphic map. Here, Kj are the momenta of the external states of the scattering, and sigmas are the punctures on the Riemann sphere. Physically, they correspond to the external states of the scattering. And Kj in general can be complex, and hence these are maps of Riemann sphere into complex momentum space. Now, given this holomorphic mapping and imposing momentum conservation, one can then arrive at a set of equations called scattering equations. There are n such scattering equations, one for each A. A labels the particle numbers or the external states of the scattering. And these scattering equations play central role in this formalism. Under SL2C transformation, that is sigma going to alpha sigma plus beta plus gamma sigma plus delta, where alpha, beta, gamma, delta are the elements of SL2C matrices, these scattering equations can be shown to remain unchanged. Hence, to remove the redundancies, one can fix 3 of the punctures, and typical choice made is 0, 1, and infinity. And then we are left with n minus 3 undetermined punctures. And therefore, the dimension of the moduli space is n minus 3. And because of these redundancies, one can show that out of the n scattering equations, n minus 3 are independent. And it is also known that total number of solutions to the set of equations is n minus 3 factorial. And scattering amplitude in CHY is represented by this integral formula, where dn sigma is the wedge product of n sigmas. And then one has to mod out by the volume of the gauge group to remove the redundancy. And in this case, the gauge group is SL2C. So this is analogous to the Faddeev-Popov gauge fixing that we do in the path integral in quantum field theory. Then there are product over delta functions whose arguments are the scattering equations. And this prime denotes that not all the scattering equations are independent. Therefore, we can remove any 3 of the equations. And this prime product then denotes that we have to take product over n minus 3 such delta functions. In is the integrand which contains detail of the specific theory that we are looking at. And in general, this In depends on the scattering data, external momenta. If we are dealing with spinning particles, then we have to consider polarization, which are denoted by epsilon, and sigma, the punctures on the Riemann sphere. Under SL2C transformation, this measured part, which we call d mu n, this is the dn sigma by volume of the gauge group times product over delta function, they change with SL2C weight minus 4. And since Mn is invariant, therefore In has to transform with the opposite SL2C weight, that is plus 4. And this somewhat constrains the form of integrand. And although this is an integral formula, but because of the presence of the delta functions, one can show that, or it is evident that the integrations are localized to the solutions of the scattering equations. And then we have to take sum over all such possible solutions, that is n minus 3 factorial. This determinant prime phi n is a Jacobian, which comes from the transformation of the delta functions. So this is a generalization of delta of f of x to delta of x by f prime x. And this is the form of the Jacobian matrix. So now let us see some examples of this In integrand. And we start with the simplest example, which we call the bi-adjoint scalars. But before that, let me define some notations here. We define particular factor with a specific color ordering alpha in this way, where in the denominator we have product over differences of the coordinates of the punctures. And this is known as particular factor because it is reminiscent of the MHV endpoint gluon amplitudes written in spinor helicity variables. It was first written down by Park and Taylor back in 80s. And it can be shown that this particular factor transforms with SL2C weight to gamma sigma plus delta raised to the power 2. And therefore, it satisfies the property of being a half integrand. Therefore, 2 copies of such particular factor will form a full integrand. And here we have taken 2 copies of particular factor with 2 different orderings, alpha and beta. And indeed, this integrand corresponds to having a cubic interaction of scalars, where scalars live in the adjoint representations of 2 unitary groups. the FABC and F tilde, A prime, B prime, C prime are the structure constants of these two unitary groups. And the full amplitude is then given by this sum over all possible color orderings, where we have separated out the color part in these two traces. This T and T tilde are the generators of the two unitary groups respectively. And then we are left with this Mn alpha beta, which depend on the kinematic variables, that is the Mandelstam invariants. And these are called partial amplitudes. And indeed, this In stands for these partial amplitudes. If we have particles with spins, like gluons or gravitons, then we need separate building blocks, which are called Pfaffian. So Pfaffian of an antisymmetric matrix is given as the square root of determinant of the matrix. And here we have considered a 2n cross 2n matrix, psi n, which has these matrices A, B, C, where each A, B, C is n cross n matrix. These are given by, say, AAB. The off-diagonal components are the polarizations Ka dot Kb divided by sigma A minus sigma B, and diagonal components are 0. Similarly, BAB is the polarization part, whose off-diagonal components are epsilon A dot epsilon B by sigma A minus sigma B, and diagonal components are 0. And CAB contains a mixed part, whose diagonal components are this, and off-diagonal components are given as sum over the elements in that specific row. And it is also known that this psi n has a kernel of dimension 2, which are given by these two vectors, and hence its determinant vanishes, so does the Pfaffian. Therefore, we need to define a non-zero quantity which we call reduced Pfaffian. So reduced Pfaffian is defined in this way by taking out any two rows and columns which are denoted by ij, and taking its Pfaffian and then multiplying by this prefactor. So this prefactor multiplication ensures that this reduced Pfaffian is independent of the choice of the specific rows and columns that are deleted. And the rows and columns that are to be deleted, I and j, should be between 1 to n. That is, it should lie in this AAB block. And also, I must mention this Pfaffian prime, this reduced Pfaffian has the property of half integrand. Therefore, if we take one copy of Pfaffian prime psi n and one copy of this particular factor with a specific ordering, it forms a full integrand. And indeed, this integrand stands for a particular color ordered Yang-Mills amplitude. And gravity amplitude is obtained by taking two copies of the reduced Pfaffian, which is given here. So here are some examples of these bi-adjoint amplitudes. 3-point function is trivial, and we can set it to 1. 4-point and 5-point amplitudes with these orderings are given in terms of these Mandelstam variables. Now, these partial amplitudes occur ubiquitously in various places. One important application is in the KLT orthogonality relations. These KLT orthogonality relations were first discovered in the context of closed and open string amplitudes. And later, it has been shown that in the field theory limit, by taking alpha prime going to 0, there exist double copy relations between gravity and Yang-Mills amplitudes, where the gravity amplitude can be expressed as two copies of the Yang-Mills amplitude with color ordering, say beta and beta tilde, with a kernel in between. And the kernel is a matrix whose elements are inverse of these bi-adjoint partial amplitudes. So now I will move to the CEGM construction. So let us go back to the k equal to 2 case once again. And this is the scattering equation that we obtained earlier. Now, these scattering equations can be thought of being obtained by extremizing a potential function which we call generalized potential function S, which is defined here by considering this ordered sum over AB, SAB, the Mandelstam variable, times log of AB round bracket, where AB round bracket is the determinant of this 2 cross 2 matrix, where the columns are the points on CP1, and these coordinates are written in homogeneous coordinates. Therefore, on CP1, they have two components. And of course, we can take a projection, go to the projective space along a particular direction. And here X denotes the ratio of the two components, sigma 1 and sigma 2. And this is what we get, the determinant of this 2 cross 2 matrix. And this is nothing but XA minus XB, which appears in this denominator. So now, this K equal to 2 thing can be generalized to arbitrary K by replacing this 2 cross 2 determinant by K cross K determinant. So here we take any K points and form this minor with K rows and K columns, where the columns are given by the points on CPK minus 1 written in inhomogeneous coordinates. And since they are points on CPK minus 1, so they will have K minus 1 number of components, x1 to xk minus 1. And here we have taken any K set of points. And then we generalize the potential function in this way by taking this ordered sum over A1 to AK, S A1, A2 to AK, which I'll come to just later, times the log of this determinant. So this quantity is called generalized Mandelstam variables, and a priori they are very abstract objects, and at this point we are not assigning this to any specific function of the external momenta, but keeping them as general as possible. Nevertheless, we can impose conditions of momentum conservation and masslessness by these equations. So momentum conservation is imposed by taking any particular label A1 and summing over rest of the labels A2 to AK and setting that sum to 0. This gives the momentum conservation. And if we demand that whenever two of the indices repeat, that variable is equal to 0, so that gives a massless condition. I hope this point is clear here. So now, given this potential function, we can take partial derivative with respect to the coordinates, and there are n into k minus 1 such coordinates. A stands for the particle level from 1 to n, and I stands for the components of the inhomogeneous coordinates 1 to k minus 1. And we arrive at set of this generalization of the scattering equation. So for k equal to 3, here is the set of two equations. So two set of equations. X and y are the x1 and x2 components on CP1 respectively. So moduli space on which the scattering equations live are defined as xk comma n by this notation, which is given by Grassmannian GRKN modulo C star n minus 1. So Grassmannian GRKN is a space of all k planes in n-dimensional space. And so to begin with, we have nk total number of coordinates, and k planes remain invariant under GLK transformation. So there are k square number of components in GLK matrix, so we have to mod out by the k square degree of freedom. And then the C star denotes the torus action. That means the coordinates can be scaled by non-zero coefficients, and there are n minus 1 such number of non-zero coefficients. And then there is an overall scaling available. So all total we have n number of scaling degree of freedom. So we have to remove k square plus n number of total degree of freedom from the nk coordinates. So nk minus k square minus n, that gives a dimension of this moduli space, which is equal to k minus 1 times n minus k minus 1. So if this dimension count is not clear, we can think of it in a different way. That is, the scattering equations transform covariantly under SL-KC transformation, these scattering equations. Just like for k equal to 2, the scattering equations transform under SL2C transformation. So for arbitrary k, they transform with SL-KC transformation. Now to fix the gauge redundancies, we can fix k plus 1 number of points. And here is an example of the gauge fixing condition. That is, the first point is fixed to origin, k plus 1th point is fixed to 1, and on CPK minus 1, there are k minus 1 ways of going to infinity. So therefore, we can fix k minus 1 points to infinity like this. So again, at first we had n into k minus 1 number of coordinates for this total for this full matrix, and then we removed k plus 1 points by gauge fixing them, and each point has k minus 1 number of components. So all total we are removing k square minus 1 number of degrees of freedom. So that leaves us with k minus 1 times n minus k minus 1 number of undetermined components. And this is also equal to the dimension of this moduli space. So now we go to the generalization of the particular factors and the bi-adjoint scalar amplitudes respectively. So earlier we saw the particular factor to be given by the product of difference of the coordinates in the denominator, and this product of differences sigma 1 minus sigma 2 could be thought of as a 2 by 2 determinant. And now we generalize this 2 by 2 determinant to k determinant of k cross k minus and take product of such determinants in the denominator, and this constitutes the generalization of the particular factor. And just for an illustration purpose, I have chosen this particular ordering, but this ordering can be made more general, like alpha and beta. So now we take 2 copies of such particular factors here, and then bi-adjoint amplitudes, the generalization to higher k is given by this integral form, where we have integration over n into k minus 1 number of variables, which are xai, and then of course we have to mod out by the volume of the gauge loop SLKC here, and then we have product over delta functions whose arguments are the scattering equations, and this prime denotes that we have to remove k plus 1 number of the delta functions to remove the gauge redundancy. And it is this amplitude that we'll be talking about in more detail as we go along. We will study the soft limits of these amplitudes. So here is an example. The 3-point amplitudes for k equal to 2 is trivial because we could fix 3 points on CP1. Similarly, for k equal to 3, we could gauge fix 4 points. So therefore, a 4-point amplitude was trivial and could be set to 1. So the first non-trivial example for, let's say, k equal to 3 is 5-point amplitude. And in general, for arbitrary k, we can fix k plus 1 point. Therefore, k plus 1 point amplitude for arbitrary k CP on CP k minus 1 is trivial. So for k equal to 2, we consider 5-point amplitude here with this specific ordering, I and I, both alpha and beta chosen to be canonically ordered. And then this 5-point amplitude is given by sum of these terms, where each term contains 2 Mandelstam variables in the denominator. The reason there are 2 Mandelstam variables is because for cubic interaction, we know that an n-point amplitude will have n minus 3 number of propagators. So 5-point amplitude will have 2 propagators, and hence, like each term has 2-point amplitude, 2 Mandelstam variables here. And similarly, by brute force, one can compute 5-point amplitude in k equal to 3, and this is the result. Now, a priori, these 2 amplitudes are very different. But now, if we identify these Mandelstam variables appearing in the k equal to 2 5-point amplitude with the complement set, meaning we take a set of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then if we take S12, the 1, 2 level is then replaced by the complement set, that is 3, 4, 5. So S12 we identify with S3, 4, 5. Similarly, S34 we identify with S512 and so on. Then we find that these 5-point amplitudes are actually equal. And in fact, this equivalence of the 5-point amplitudes for k equal to 2 and k equal to 3 is not just a mere coincidence, but rather a consequence of more general feature, that is the isomorphism between 2 Grassmannians, GR k, n and GR n minus k, n. So GR k, n, as we saw that this is the space of k planes in n dimensions. So there are nck number of ways of choosing the k plane. And nck is also equal to nc n minus k. So instead of choosing the k planes, we can as well choose the complementary set, that is n minus k planes. and hence this isomorphism between grkn and grn minus k comma n. And as a
Can I ask
result
a question?
Yes, yes.
So in the case of k equal to 2, the Park-Taylor form basically corresponded to a 3-point vertex in the Lagrangian, right?
I mean, 2 copies of the Park-Taylor factors will correspond to.
Right. Now, but for general k, is there a way? I mean, can I think of something like that?
Yeah. So for general k, the understanding in terms of Feynman diagram is not very clear. Although there are generalizations of the Feynman diagrams in the literature,
Okay.
but thinking just in terms of the Feynman diagrams,
Right.
I think it is not very well understood, because the amplitude by itself is not well understood. They have various different pole structures, higher order pole structures, and so on. So they cannot be merely thought of as Feynman diagrams. But although for this specific case, that is for n equal to 5-point amplitude. Now, if we make this identification, that is S12 is identified with S345, then I guess the understanding becomes trivial, meaning they just reduce to our earlier understanding in case of k equal to 2.
I see. Okay.
But for general, in general, there are relations that I'll just say in a few slides later.
Okay.
That is, let's say for k equal to 2, we look at 6-point amplitude. Then that will correspond to k equal to 4. That is CP3. CP4.
Right.
CP3. Sorry, CP3. So then, once we make these identifications, then we can explain in terms of the Feynman diagram. But this identification holds for specific cases, not in general.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, thanks. So, so as a result of this isomorphism between the two Grassmannians, grkn and grn minus k comma n, we see that these two moduli spaces xk comma n and xn minus k comma n are sort of dual to each other. So to understand this duality, let's consider the scattering equations sk on this moduli space xk comma n, which is given here, and this is the determinant of k cross k minors. Now, if we replace this k cross k minors by the complementary set, that is n minus k cross n minus k n minus k cross n minus k minor, so then we get this determinant. And after that, if we identify this generalized Mandelstam variables with the complementary set, then we see that we obtain scattering equations for Cp n minus k minus 1. So starting from the scattering equations on Cp k minus 1, we arrive at the scattering equations on Cp n minus k minus 1. So as I was alluding to earlier, that if we look at 5-point amplitude, then scattering equations on Cp1 is related to scattering equation on Cp2, and say for n equal to 6-point amplitude, scattering equation on Cp1 is related to scattering equation on Cp3, and so on. And once we identify this and find out the amplitudes, then I guess this correspondence with the, or identification with the Feynman diagrams become easy. Okay, so now I'll move on to soft limits, but before that, if there are any questions, I can stop.
So now in k equal to 3 case, for n equal to 5, Sijk has the same meaning as what we expect from the.
Yes.
But if I take like Sijkl, even in k equal to 3, there is no meaning.
There is no. Sijkl is not defined in k equal to 3 because these Mandelstam variables are defined.
Okay. It's always the rank is always given by.
Yeah. So these are defined by k number of indices, or the rank is k.
I see. So for any n particle, but for k equal to 3, you can look at grnk, right? That you can look. I mean, n particle amplitude.
Yes. So for k equal to 3, we look at gr3 comma n.
3. So there Sijk, but they don't have this meaning of pi plus pj for any n not equal to 5.
For any n not equal to 5, the meaning is not clear. Yes. So they are abstract variables.
I see. Yeah. And this massless condition, then.
Yes.
So this is like, if I take Sijk, then Siik is 0. Is that what this massless condition?
Say for example, S112 is 0. or S122 or S133.
I see. But if I take S112 as P1 plus P1 plus P2 the whole square in the n equal to 5 case, then I mean the previous you assigned this. You said Sijk is Pi plus Pj plus Pk
Right.
square. Right?
So that is why I'm saying that, I mean, specifying to a particular form of momenta is not clear. So it's not right to think as A1, A2, A3 to be PA1 plus PA2 plus PA3 whole square. But rather we should think of this as the square of sum of two momenta living in the complementary set. Say for example, S123 should be equal to P4 plus P5 whole square.
Okay. I see. So it's not correct to think of even in n equal to 5, k equal to 3 of S345 P3 plus P4.
No.
Yeah. I shouldn't think like.
Yeah.
Thanks.
From this identification, we see that it is.
Okay. It's the other way. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. So now let me describe the soft limit. So here we will take soft limit in the nth external state. And the way we will take the soft limit is through the Mendelssohn variables, where we will demand that Sna scales as tau in the limit tau going to 0. And this A labels the hard particles labeled by 1 to n minus 1. And in this limit, the scattering equations take this form. So Ea corresponds to the scattering equations for hard particles 1 to n minus 1. The first term is the sum over n minus 1 terms, where in none of the terms there appears the soft momenta dependence or soft puncture dependence. So this is completely independent of the information about soft external state. And then there is a second term which is given here, and we see that unless the denominator xa minus xn goes to order tau, this term will always remain of order tau and will be subleading to the first sum. And indeed for k equal to 2, it can be shown that the singular solutions, that is xa minus xn, never appears, because if we had singular solutions, it would lead to unphysical factorization channels, which is not correct for k equal to 2. And the thing is that xa minus xn remains always of order 1. And therefore, this second term can be neglected in comparison to the other terms. And then if we look at this set of equations, so they form complete set of equations for the hard particles and can be solved exactly for the hard punctures x1 to xn minus 1. And now, knowing the solution of the hard particles, hard punctures, we can plug them back in the nth particle scattering equation, and we can solve for xn. So En, which is the scattering equation for nth particle, scales as tau, like this. And as I mentioned just before, right now, that Ea gives solutions to n minus 1 hard particles, and this is a set of n minus 1 equations. So there are n minus 4 factorial number of solutions. And then this xn, so En will be a polynomial in xn of order n minus 2, because there are n minus 1 number of terms. But it can be shown that imposing momentum conservation, the term xn raised to the power n minus 2 actually vanishes. So we have to go to the next non-vanishing term, that is xn raised to the power n minus 3. And therefore, the order of the polynomial here is n minus 3. And therefore, xn has n minus 3 number of solutions for each set of solutions for Ea. And therefore, the total number of solutions is n minus 3 times n minus 4 factorial, which is equal to n minus 3 factorial number of solutions. So thus, we have recovered all the solutions for the set of n scattering equations. Now, we are interested in considering the soft limit of this amplitude Mn, where both alpha and beta are canonically ordered. So in that case, this amplitude on the left hand side, Mn II, actually factorizes into a lower point amplitude, Mn minus 1. So where this depends on the hard particles momenta and the solution and the solutions to the hard particles punctures. And here is a soft factor which is given by this integral representation or integral over the soft puncture xn, and this is the delta function for the En scattering equation. And this integrand, so here we have pulled out the dependence on xn from the particular factor, and this gives this integrand. So now we use this delta function to convert this integration over xn to a contour integration. So our original contour encloses the zeros of this scattering equation En, and then what we do is we apply global residue theorem, deform the contour away from the original one to infinity, and in that process we encounter poles at xn equal to xn minus 1 and x1, and indeed it can be checked that these are simple poles at xn minus 1 and x1, and we compute the residue over the simple poles, and this is the answer. So here I have just pulled out the scale factor tau, and this gives the answer. This is compatible with the Weinberg soft theorem, that is the soft factor will contain a simple pole in the soft momenta, which is here given by the scaling 1 by tau. Similarly, we can apply the soft theorem to k equal to 3, and this has been done in these papers. So here we consider the soft limit in the nth external state through this Mandelstam variable. Now here I should emphasize that again, thinking in terms of momenta is very misleading. So instead we consider the more general case where SNAB, this Mandelstam variable, scales as tau in the limit tau going to 0, and AB are the labels of the hard particles that run from 1 to n minus 1. And in this case, the scattering equations are given by, again, similar to the earlier that we saw, that EA are the scattering equations for the hard particles. So this summation contains terms which are independent of the soft puncture xn, and here there is another term which is highlighted in red. So now, depending on the behavior of the denominator, this term can be of either this term can be of order either tau or 1. And indeed, for k equal to 3 case, the denominator, which is the determinant of 3 by 3 matrix ABN, can actually go to order tau, because singular solutions do exist for k greater than equal to 3. But it has been shown in one of these papers, mainly in this paper, that the singular solutions contribute to subleading order in the soft factorization. So therefore, since we will be interested only in the leading soft factorization, we will drop this term, because for our case, this determinant will always scale as order 1, and overall scaling of this term is order tau. So therefore, this is subdominant over this term, and we will neglect this term, and the hard scattering equations will now be completely specified by these terms highlighted in blue, and therefore we can consistently solve for the hard punctures, and knowing the solutions of the hard punctures, we can proceed to solving for the xn. I mean, if we are interested in the solutions for the soft punctures. So this is then the equation for the soft state En, and here I equal to 1, 2, because we are on CPK minus, we are on CP2, and each coordinate has 2 components. So actually what we will do is not to solve xn here, but to use the delta functions corresponding to this En to do integration over xn as a contour integration. Now for convenience, we will work in homogeneous coordinates. So here we define some notation. This 3-indexed round bracket is given by the determinant of this 3 by 3 matrix, where the columns are given by the points, by the punctures A, B, and C, written in the homogeneous coordinates. And this is the expression for this determinant here. And we consider soft limit in this Mn3 as before, with the canonically ordered both alpha and beta.
Sorry, Arnab, can I ask?
Yes.
So your theory is parameterized only in terms of S's, SIJKs.
That is right.
So I mean, there is no momenta as such in this theory of the particles. I mean, because we don't know the relationship of S with P's.
That is right. So we are not talking in terms of momenta. So here we are specifying or we are formulating everything in terms of the S here. You are right.
I see. But it's still like still some n point amplitude, but so the external states are still momenta states, or I mean that was my question. I mean,
so external states. So yes, I mean that is a puzzle. But the thing is that what we are claiming here, that we can still talk about a soft limit by instead of specifying the softness through the momenta, we can specify the softness through the S Mandelstam variable. Now,
but does this mean in some sense particle N is going soft? I mean, because Tn is not appearing, right? I mean, that was my doubt.
That is right. So the notion of the soft limit is different here.
Okay.
Meaning it is not Pn going to 0, but rather the Mandelstam variable corresponding to the nth particle is going to 0.
Mm-hmm. Like Pn never appears directly.
Pn never appears. Yes. Pn never appears.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So in that case, the soft factor is then given in this way. That is under this soft factorization. So here we have a contour integration. We have an integration over the soft puncture sigma. And so this is sigma corresponds to the soft puncture xn, and this is the 2 form on the CP2, and x and y are the arbitrary reference vectors on the CP2. So these are analogous to having like reference spinors in the spinohelicity to define momenta. And here what we have done is convert the delta functions. So now remember, we have 2-dimensional delta functions. We have converted the delta functions to the contours. So the contours are specified here. And again, this integrand is formed by pulling out the Park-Taylor, the xn dependence from the Park-Taylor factor. And this is the integral representation of the soft factor in this case. Now, again, we apply the same trick, that is, we deform the contours for the sigma using global residue theorem. And the poles will be picked up whenever the determinant of this integrand goes to 0. And the determinant of this integrand can go to 0 when any one or multiple of the terms appearing in the determinant goes to 0. And there are 3 such terms which are written separately here in red. And we see that, so these are determinants of this 3×3 matrix. And there will be simple poles when either, let's say, one of the determinants goes to 0 or more than one go to 0. And since we are on CP2, we have to look for codimension 2 boundary singularities. And there are 2 ways of having this codimension 2 boundaries. One is called the collision singularities, and the other one is a collinear singularity. Now the collision singularity appears when, before that, let me just explain here. In this 3×3 determinant, this determinant can go to 0 when either 2 of the columns are proportional to each other or they are equal. So when they are equal, we call them collision singularity. When they are proportional to each other, they will be collinear singularity. So similarly, in the collision singularity, when say the soft puncture sigma goes to any hard puncture, let's say sigma n-1 or sigma 1. So when sigma goes to sigma n-1, these 2 determinants actually vanish, because the first one and the second one. And similarly, when sigma goes to sigma 1, the second one and third determinant vanish. So in this case, sigma can be parameterized in this way: sigma a, where a corresponding to n-1 or 1, plus a small deformation epsilon times a. A is a vector on CP2. Now sigma has 2 degrees of freedom, and since epsilon has already eaten up 1 degree of freedom, so a is a contains 1 degree of freedom, and we have to integrate over both epsilon and a. Now, in principle, we can see that actually there are other possibilities. For example, sigma could go to n-2, or sigma could also go to sigma 2. So in that case, when sigma goes to n-2, then this determinant vanishes. But we can check that when one term in the denominator, one determinant vanishes, it produces singularity of lesser order, and the residue on those singularities are 0. So therefore, sigma n-2 or sigma going to 2 give vanishing residue, and we don't need to consider them. So these are the two possibilities of collision singularities. And similarly, we can have collinear singularities. That is when sigma lies at the intersection of two straight lines, one joining sigma n-2 and sigma n-1 here, and the other joining sigma 1 and sigma 2. So in this case, we take this sigma to be collinear with these two hard punctures, these two here and 1, 2 here. So in this case, these two determinants, the first one and third one, vanish.
Arnab, can I ask just a slight confusion? So yes, this collinear singularity, is it related to the collinear singularity in a Feynman diagram where 2 momenta go collinear? Is it related?
No. A priori, no.
Okay.
Because here we are talking about soft factorization, first of all.
Okay.
And these are singularities in the moduli space.
Right.
So we do not have interpretation in terms of Feynman diagram.
Okay.
So when you consider this collinear singularities, so basically what is happening is that each of the straight lines is codimension 1 boundary, and intersection of two codimension 1 boundary gives a codimension 2 boundary. So here we parameterize sigma in this way: alpha sigma 1 plus beta sigma n-1 plus xi. So xi is this point where the two straight lines collide, meet. So when alpha goes to 0, sigma is restricted on this straight line, sigma n- joining sigma n-1 and sigma n-2. And then further, if we set beta to 0, then sigma collapses to xi. And in this way, this codimension 2 singularity is formed. Now we could have questioned that sigma could be collinear with these two sets, that is n-2, n-1 and n-1, 1. But in that case, we see that like these two determinants vanish, but also simultaneously n-2, n-1 and 1 also become collinear. But that violates our assumption that singularities never come from hard punctures, because if this configuration happens, if we consider this singularity, then we will find singularities here that we don't want. So therefore, in the collinear case, these is the only possibility, that is sigma, that is these two determinants vanish, not any other. So finally, having classified these boundaries, we can compute the soft factor, and this is the result what we get by computing the residues over the singularities. So this residue is coming from the collinear singularity, and these two are coming from these respective collision singularities. And now note that the order of the singularity here, order of the pole is a double order pole, 1 by tau square. And in general, for arbitrary k, the singularity goes as 1 by tau to the power k minus 1. And this is understandable because on CP k-1, we have k-1 number of variables, and each of the variable contributes to a simple pole, and therefore the order of the pole becomes 1 by tau to the power k-1. And it is due to the presence of these higher order poles, the notions of locality and unitarity are very different, and they are yet to be understood. So this completes the analysis of single soft factor. And are there any questions? Okay, so now let me proceed to.
Sorry, Arnab, so is there any, is there any like physical, intuition for this higher, how the order of pole increases with k?
Physically, to be honest, physically we don't know. Although, there are some studies using these generalized Feynman diagrams, but those are very mathematical. Meaning, in the Feynman diagrams, there are entries. We take the soft limit and reduce the matrix to smaller size matrix. But those are mathematical, but physically, I do not know of any physical interpretation.
It's not like if in the inside loop integrand, if I take the loop momentum to be soft, then the pole will be higher order, right? I mean, if I take a one loop integrand in phi cube and take the loop momentum soft, I mean, in the integrand, then I'll get a second order. So, I mean, can it be used to have some understanding as to what?
I see. Yes, that is probably a very good point. Yeah, okay. Maybe we can think in terms of the loop integrand. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for the comment. Okay. So now let me proceed to this double soft theorem. So in this case, we take soft limits in let's say two adjacent levels, n and n minus 1. And so these are given as Sna and Sn minus 1a going as order tau. And Sn minus 1n, this will then go as tau square. And this can be understood because for k equal to 2, we have the usual momenta representations, momenta functions. So this will be like kn minus 1 plus kn whole square. So and each of these momenta are null momenta, and so this scaling will go as tau square. And A labels are hard particles that goes from 1 to n minus 2. Now the scattering equations then are given in this form. Ea represents the scattering equation for hard particles. So the first term is again a sum over n minus 2 hard particles which are independent of n and n minus 1. And their extra terms again will demand that this denominator is always of order 1, and therefore overall scaling of these two terms is order tau, which is subdominant compared to the rest of the terms, so we can forget them. And this then form a consistent set of complete set of hard particle equation. And there are En minus 1 and En corresponding to the scattering equations for soft particles n minus 1 and n. And now, so the first term is okay, but the second term, which is highlighted in red here, actually depends on the order of this term depends on the denominator. So if the denominator, that is xn minus 1 minus xn, is of order tau to the power 0, so then this term is order tau square and is subdominant compared to the rest of the terms. If xn minus 1 minus xn is of order tau, so then this term is at equal order to the other terms. So then they cannot be neglected. And depending on this behavior, the solutions to the scattering equations are of two types. That is, when xn minus 1 minus xn goes as order tau, we call the solutions degenerate solutions. And when xn minus 1 minus xn goes as order tau to the power 0, we call that non-degenerate solutions. And this is just the integral representation of the double soft factor by a joint scalar amplitude. We have integrations over xn and xn minus 1 with the delta functions corresponding to En and En minus 1. And this is the integrand which contains the dependence on the soft functors xn and xn minus 1. Now, it has been shown that for gravity and gluon amplitudes, leading contributions come from either non-degenerate solutions or both non-degenerate and degenerate ones. In fact, for gravity amplitude, the leading soft factor comes from the non-degenerate solution, and for gluon amplitudes, where the soft particles are taken in the adjacent leg, then the leading contribution comes both from non-degenerate as well as degenerate solutions. And the order is 1 by tau square, order of the soft factor to leading at a leading order. And for scalars, only degenerate solutions contribute to leading order, and we will soon see what is the order of this pole. And just to illustrate this fact about gravity or gluon amplitude, I mean, we can consider the case of Young-Mills here. So this is, just to remind, this was the Young-Mills amplitude given as one copy of Park-Lula factor and one copy of reduced Pfaffian. So soft limit in the non-adjacent legs are trivial. They are just product of two single soft factors. Soft limits in the adjacent leg is a bit involved. And let me just spend 2 slides on these soft limits in the adjacent leg. So if we are considering non-degenerate solutions, in that case, the particular factor factorizes in this way. Cn factorizes into lower point Cn minus 2. This one does not have any dependence on the soft punctures. So Cn minus 2 multiplied by a factor which has this n and n minus 1 dependence here. And similarly, reduced Pfaffian can factorize in this way. Reduced Pfaffian of n minus 2 times a factor. And then the idea is to do subsequent integrations on xn and xn minus 1. So here we can first do the xn integration followed by the xn minus 1. And then what we find is one factor, which is one term, which is written in this blue color. This term, which has the good pole structure, plus additional terms. So these additional terms are obtained first by integrating over xn, and then we are left with the xn minus 1 integration. So xn minus 1 here is a contour integral where the poles are over the scattering equations of xn minus 1, which are given by ai. So ai is basically kn minus 1 dot pa by xn minus 1 minus xn sum over a1 to n minus 2. Then if we deform the contour, use global residue theorem, we see that there are, in addition to the simple poles, there are higher order poles which are difficult to compute. So instead of performing this integral, we just leave it as it is because they don't seem to have very good pole structure. So this is the result which we obtain from non-degenerate solutions. And similarly, we can proceed to calculate the degenerate solutions. And in the degenerate solutions, we make change of variables, which I'll come to very shortly. But for the timing, please ignore this xi and rho variables here. But the idea is to show that this reduced Pfaffian actually factorizes as n minus 2 point reduced Pfaffian times this factor, which goes as order tau to the power 0. And there's a corresponding factorization for the particular factor. And then when we do the integrations over these rho and xi variables, we find that the extra term that appeared here in the non-degenerate solutions, they cancel because we get analogous term but with opposite sign, which cancel these extra terms. And finally, we obtain this result for the double soft leading factorization in the Yang-Mills case. And these extra terms can actually be interpreted as having spurious poles, which we obtain in the BCFW recursion relations. Individual terms have spurious poles, but when we sum over all the terms, they actually go away. So now, as I mentioned earlier, that in the scalar case, the dominating contribution comes from the degenerate ones. And that can be understood because if we look at the expression, the integral expression here, what we find that in the non-degenerate case, the only factor of tau that can be contributed is from the measure part. That is, these delta functions, en and en minus 1, each of them goes as tau. So that will contribute to 1 by tau square. And no scaling comes from the integrand. But in the degenerate case, the integrand also can contribute. And in fact, this makes the contribution dominating over the non-degenerate contribution. And therefore, in the case of scalars, the degenerate solutions actually contribute to leading order. So to make the analysis for degenerate solutions, we first need to make change of variables. So where we have traded off xn minus 1 and xn by rho and xi. Rho is of order 1 and xi goes as order tau. And xn minus 1 minus xn goes as 2 xi. And indeed, this is what we expect, xn minus 1 minus xn to go as tau. And then this is so the integrations over xn minus 1 and xn have now been converted to integrations over rho and xi, and here we have two delta functions. We have manipulated them to be sum and differences of the scattering equations, and this integral now is again written in terms of xi and rho. And now I would like to point out a difference of our approach with that earlier available in the literature. So earlier, what has been done so far is to use this delta function with en minus 1 minus en to solve for xi. And the solution for xi is given in terms of rho. And then we use the delta function to localize xi over the solution. And after that, use this delta function en minus 1 plus en to do contour integration over rho and obtain the answer. But this method is slightly tricky to generalize to higher k because of the presence of multidimensional delta function, and the solution to xi is not straightforward in that case. So instead of solving for xi, what we do is do contouring to use this delta function to convert the xi integration to a contour integration. And let me explain this contour integration part. So en minus 1 minus en is actually given here by this expression. So the first term, which is the summation, contains rho dependent part, and the second sum is which is Sn minus 1 n by xi. Now we see that when we deform the contour, we pick up poles at xi equal to 0. And near xi equal to 0, this is the term that dominates over the rho dependent part. So therefore, we can forget about this part, this term, and then xi, the pole at xi reduces to a simple pole at xi. And we can do the contour integration easily. And this gives the residue 1 by Sn minus 1 n. And after that, we can do the contour integration using this delta function for rho. And this is the answer that we get. And here, note the order of pole in tau. So this comes as 1 by tau cube. So compared to the result we obtained in gravity or gluon, this is a higher order pole. And in fact, 1 by tau cube, this pole can be understood from the Feynman diagram. So for the particular choice of the color ordering that we have chosen, so these are the relevant Feynman diagrams, where n minus 1 and n are the soft legs, which can be attached either to n minus 2 hard leg or 1 hard leg. And then we see that this pole, this propagator, which connects to the n minus 2th hard leg, goes as 1 by tau square, because these two are soft. And this propagator, which is like Pn minus 2 plus Kn minus 1 plus Kn whole square, so this goes as order tau. And hence, the order of the pole 1 by tau cube. And we note that if we take non-adjacent soft limit, like say n and n minus 2 particle going soft, then the double soft factor is nothing but product of two single soft factors, which goes as order 1 by tau square. This is the result. And this is subdominant to the adjacent limit.
Okay. Sorry, Arnab, in the previous slide, the comparison with Feynman diagram, shouldn't you also have, oh, I see. Okay. I see. The second term is the one that is coming from the two legs that you explained. The Sn minus 1, n minus 2 is like Pn minus 1 dot Pn minus 2.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. Okay. So are there any questions? Okay. So let me move on to the k equal to 3 case. And this is the work in progress, almost completed by us. So here, for the k equal to 3 case, we can have 3 possible configurations, and 3 main class of configurations. That is, we can take adjacent soft particles, let's say n and n minus 1 to be soft. We can have next to adjacent, where the two soft particles are separated by the one hard level, or we can have two soft particles which are separated by equal to 2 or more than 2 hard levels. And in fact, if we consider say next to adjacent soft limits, let's say we take nth one to be soft, then this A can be anything between 3 and n minus 3, and the qualitative form of the answer does not change, and it is just given by product of two singles of factors, and as and the scaling therefore goes as 1 by tau to the power 4, because singles of factor scales as 1 by tau square. So the interesting case is where we have two soft labels which are adjacent to each other, and in this case n and n minus 1. So here we take SNAB and Sn minus 1AB to be soft, and they go as order tau, and Sn minus 1Na, this goes as order tau square, and AB are the hard labels. And again, we will be concentrating only on the regular solutions. That is, we will make the assumption that ABN minus 1 or ABN, none of them go as order tau. And that is for all AB. That is that is a way of saying that none of the soft punctures can form a singularity with two hard punctures in the scattering equation limit, in the scattering equation level. So in that case, EA, which corresponds to the hard scattering equations, EA is given by this scattering equation, which is independent of any n or n minus 1 dependence, and En minus 1 and En correspond to the scattering equations for the soft punctures. And again here, depending on the behavior of this puncture of this denominator A n minus 1 and n, this term can be either of order tau or order tau square. And here also we will have two broad classifications. That is, when A n minus 1 n, they go as order tau, then these solutions will be called degenerate. And if this determinant go as order tau to the power 0, so then this will be called non-degenerate solutions. And for our interest, we will consider only the degenerate solutions, because as we have seen previously for k equal to 2 case, and can be checked for k equal to 3 case as well, that non-degenerate solutions contribute to subleading order. So we will not bother about them. So the degenerate solutions can come in two possible ways. That is, like the previous one, where sigma n minus 1 and sigma n come close to each other, collide with each other. So in that case, the two columns of the 3 cross 3 determinant, they become almost equal, separated by an order tau, and therefore the determinant scales as order tau. Or it can happen that the two soft punctures, sigma n minus 1 and sigma n, are nearly collinear with any one hard puncture. And by nearly collinear, I mean that the determinant does not become 0 strictly, but rather scales as order tau. And this any one is important, because if we have, let's say, A n minus 1 n are collinear along with another level, say B n minus 1 n collinear, so in that case A B n minus 1 or A B n also become collinear, and that violates this assumption that A B n minus 1 or A B n cannot be of order tau. So therefore, to consider the collinear case, it is mandatory to consider only one hard puncture to be collinear with the two soft punctures. So let us first study this collision case, and like before, we parameterize the two soft punctures in the inhomogeneous coordinates, because working in inhomogeneous coordinate in this case is more convenient. Therefore, we revert to inhomogeneous coordinate, and in the inhomogeneous coordinate, we parameterize xn minus 1 and xn by rho and xi. So
visual biadjoint theory.
Yes.
Suppose you did the double soft, simultaneous double soft limits.
Right.
Then the degenerate solution will still be classified by sigma n minus 1 sigma n colliding, and or they are being colliding with one hard puncture, or is there a difference if you just had the usual?
So I mean for k equal to 2 case, right?
Yeah.
So for the k equal to 2 case, this never appears. This sigma n minus 1 and sigma n. So only.
I see. Okay. First one only.
first one. Yeah, because in the denominator there's
only sigma.
Yeah. And actually in general, in general it will be more general, because for k equal to 3 we have this 3 by 3 determinant. For any general case we will have higher order higher rank determinant. So in that case, instead of collinear, we have to consider coplanar. That is, when two soft punctures are coplanar with k minus 2 hard punctures. That is the more general statement. Okay. So okay. First, let us study this collision case. That is, we parameterize by rho and xi. Rho is already given by this one, rho 1 and rho 2, where both rho 1 and rho 2 is of order tau to the power 0, and the xi is actually given by this 0, xi 1 and xi 2. This because of the presence of this 0 entry here, this is like a point at infinity on CP2, and the assumption is that this xi goes as order tau. So therefore, like, we can check that this determinant, this condition is satisfied. And then in terms of these rho and xi variables, the soft factor is given here. So again, I have just separated the color coding just to point out like which delta function corresponds to which integration. So this one, en minus 1 minus en, is used to do the xi integration, and this delta function is used to do the rho integration. And here the xi dip. So these are the places where the singularities come, as I just mentioned that. So let us consider the xi integration first. So in that case, en minus 1 minus en is given by this. So where this first summation does not have xi dependence but rho dependence only, and this term in red, in blue, that has the xi dependent part. And so the thing is that if we use this delta function to convert it to a contour integration and then deform the contour, and then we find that singularities for xi appear when these two determinants go to 0. And when these two determinants go to 0, then we find that this is like a rho xi, where a is n minus 2 or 1. So when these two terms go to 0, so this is dominating over this rho dependent part. So therefore we can forget about the rho dependent part and consider this part only. And this part can actually be written in a manipulated like derivative acting on a newly defined potential function, where the potential function is defined here. And then to do the xi integration, so basically we again make a change of variables. Xi1 is epsilon and xi2 is given as epsilon times alpha here. And we see that this s tilde, to in order to see the singularities in s tilde, we take this one form ds tilde, and we see that epsilon has pole at 0 and alpha has pole at alpha a. And epsilon at 0 gives the residue s1 by s a n minus 1 n, and alpha equal to alpha a, where alpha is defined in this way. So this is like taking a CP1 projection on CP2. So when we do this alpha integration, so the pole that is contributed for alpha is at a equal to n minus 2 and n equal to 1. And after we are done with the xi integration, we can do the rho integration as before, and this is the answer that we obtain. So this part is the result of the xi integration, which looks like so this term, this residue comes from the epsilon part, epsilon integration, and this residue comes from the xi integration. So this is analogous to the CP1 integration for single soft factorization, but the difference is that now this Mandelstam variable has 3 index instead of 2, and the rho integration here is basically analogous to a single soft factorization on CP2, and this is the rho integration where the poles are kind of shifted. Instead of having SA n minus 2 m, we have the combination of n minus 1 and n level here. And here note the scaling of this double soft factor, it scales as 1 by tau to the power 6. And we claim that this is the answer for double soft factorization. And then going back to Alok's earlier question, what happens to this sigma n minus 1 and sigma n? I mean, this can be shown to produce subleading soft factor. And that is because this collinear condition, sigma n minus 1 and sigma n, as we mentioned that it can be they can be collinear with only one hard puncture. And in this case, the hard puncture is n minus 1. Minus 2 and 1 in this limit will be collinear with n minus 1, the middle one. And in that case, what happens is that only one term in the denominator actually scales as tau. So here we see that two terms, when we take the collinear singularity, that is sigma n minus 1 and sigma n colliding, we see that two terms in the denominator go as order tau. So making the total order tau is 1 by tau to the power 4 coming from the integrand. But in the collinear case, we see the scaling goes as 1 by tau square. So the order of the singularity is reduced, and in fact, this collinear singularity that produces term at order 1 by tau to the power 5, which is subleading, and therefore this is the leading answer. And in fact, this answer, I mean, to check the consistency of this answer, we can take a consecutive soft limit. That is where we take first, let's say, Sn, I mean, we take the nth particle to be softer than the n minus 1th particle, and they scale as tau 1 and tau 2. In this assumption, tau 1 much less than tau 2, and so this is the answer for the consecutive soft limit. And if we take similar limit from this adjacent from this simultaneous soft limit, then this is what we obtain. The two answers match, and this gives us confidence over our answer. Are there any questions? Okay. So now this k equal to 3, this simultaneous double soft limit can actually be generalized. I mean, we have the generalization for arbitrary k as well. So in the arbitrary k case, we have these two Mandelstam variables corresponding to n and n minus 1 go as order tau, and Sn minus 1 n with the rest other k minus 2 hard levels go as order tau square. And these are the scattering equations. The scattering equations take this form. Then again, we will look at only degenerate solutions here, and the strategy is we follow the same old strategy, that is first make change of variables from xn minus 1, xn to rho and xi, where xi goes as order tau, and now in this case I runs from 1 to k minus 1. And then we first perform the xi integration, and so again we will have two delta functions, one with the argument en minus 1 plus en, and the other with the argument en minus 1 minus en. And we will use the second delta function with the argument en minus 1 minus en to do the contour integration for xi. And as before, so earlier we make change of variables from xi1 and xi2 we wrote as epsilon and epsilon alpha. But now we are doing integration on Cp k minus 1 for arbitrary k. So we will make change of variables. Xi1 is equal to epsilon and xi2 is equal to epsilon times zeta. Zeta is a vector which has k minus 2 component, meaning zeta is a vector on, you can think of zeta as being a vector on a lower dimensional projective space, that is Cp k minus 2 in some sense. And then we do the epsilon integration, and epsilon integration will give this residue s a1 to a k minus 2 n minus 1 n, and then we are left with this zeta integration. So zeta integration is like a k minus 2 dimensional, is actually a k minus 2 dimensional integration, and this integration is same as that produced the k minus 1 soft factor, and this gives s k minus 1. And after that we will have to do the rho integration, and the rho integration will give a soft factor for sk. So actually the thing that all total we have 2 into k minus 1 number of variables, and this is the way we separate out the variables to do the integration. So all total we have like 2 into k minus 1 number of integrations done, and this is the result for the double soft factorization for arbitrary k. So this residue this residue came from epsilon integration. This part is k minus 1. This came from this zeta integration. This k minus 2 dimensional integration. But okay, I'll explain this later. And then rho integration gave rise to this sk. So here we obtain a recursive relations where arbitrary k double soft factor for any k is obtained in terms of k minus 1 and k single soft factors, and thus given any soft factor, knowing any soft factor sk or sk minus 1, we can readily compute what is the double soft factor for that k. And some features are that notice this sk here. So these poles, the poles in sk are shifted. So if we consider m to be the soft level, sa1 to ak minus 1 m, so this m is actually shifted to n minus 1 and n. Just like for the k equal to 3 case, so we have this kind of combination, additive combination of n minus 1 and n levels. So this goes through for arbitrary k. And for sk minus 1, this argument says that the poles in sk minus 1 are obtained by the replacement, because since we are looking at sk minus 1, the Mandelstam variables will have k minus 1 levels. So if this is the way we consider the labeling, a1 to ak minus 2 m, so by replacing m by this composite label n minus 1 and n, we obtain the sk minus 1 soft factor for this double soft k. And the scaling of this double soft factor goes as 1 by tau to the power 3 k minus 1, and this can be checked. So this gives 1 by tau to the power k minus 1 here, and this will give 1 by tau square, and the rest will come from here. So are there any questions? I mean, so this completes the analysis of our double soft factor for arbitrary k.
Is there any way to understand this from Feynman diagrams?
Not that I know of. I mean, because of the appearance of higher order poles, connection to the Feynman
so I can
diagram,
understand the amplitudes may be harder to relate, but the soft limit itself,
yes.
Can it be easier to see the soft limit somehow in terms of Feynman diagrams?
Right. I think, I mean, very straightforward interpretation in terms of Feynman diagram is not known. What can be done, we have not yet checked, is that there exists generalization to Feynman diagrams. So those are given in terms of matrices. So probably it can be thought of, when you take the soft limit, some entries of the matrix are like deleted. So the matrix reduces to lower dimensional matrix. So in that way, it can be understood. But in terms of Feynman graphs, in general, it is not possible. What might be possible is that if we look at particular n point amplitude, let's say, so then we know the relation between Cpn and Cpn minus k minus 1. So whenever, if we are say looking at 6-point amplitude, we know that we can relate these Mandelstam variables from Cp1 to Cp3. In that way, we can understand. But for any arbitrary n, I think it is not possible, or I don't know of.
Okay. So, but ultimately, these will be building blocks of some field theory amplitudes, right?
I mean, this part is actually not very clear because you see because of the order of the pole that is appearing. This is a high order pole. So if they come from any tree-level factorization, so we know that in amplitudes, because of locality or unitarity, we cannot have higher order poles. So that rules out the possibility of very simple interpretation in terms of amplitude. But what can be very speculative, like this, although these are tree level amplitudes we are saying, but this can be related to some loop level integral. But that is a very speculative. So although these admit the soft factorization property, but because of the presence of these higher order poles, locality and unitarity as such are violated. So naive interpretation in terms of this scattering amplitude, I think, is not very straightforward.
I see. Okay.
But Arnab, when you go to a given boundary of the moduli space, your amplitude still factorize into like on a lower point endpoint amplitudes even in this case?
That is true. So the soft factorization, that is as we are seeing here, that even for
unitarity, I mean, some form of unitarity is still valid. I guess locality you're saying is not obvious because they're higher order poles, but when you're
okay, by unitarity I mean the condition that at tree level you will have poles only at simple poles. You will have a factorization on simple poles. That condition is not valid.
That's locality.
Right?
I mean,
that's locality and unitarity together.
Yeah, I mean, the residue of that on that pole is lower point amplitude product is unitarity. I mean, so I thought that is still valid, right? So some notion of unitarity.
I see. Yes. So yeah, I mean the higher point amplitude broken into lower point amplitude, that part is valid, but the locality and unitarity together, that is hard to.
But you need single poles, right? I mean, to calculate residue.
Right.
I mean, normally you don't have higher order poles.
That is true. At tree level, we don't have higher order poles.
But if you go to a boundary, does your amplitude look like some left amplitude, right amplitude divided by some higher order pole? I mean, is there where the lower point amplitudes are lower point amplitudes of the same theory? I mean, is that still true? Or?
I mean, okay. So let's look at the k equal to 3 case. So this is the soft factorization. So it looks like if we start with M3, it will look like S3 times M2. So this is a soft factor.
Yeah, now, this is soft. I was thinking more of the if you go towards on a boundary of the moduli space, like not the soft.
I see. So boundary of the moduli space. Okay.
So basically, you shell. I mean, in one of the channels. I mean,
I see.
That break into lower point amplitude somehow.
I mean, so these will be the pole structures, right? Like here we have like two Mandelstam variables as such. But for the simple poles like this one, like they always, I mean, usually they always come with single Mandelstam variables.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe related to, I think, Ashok's question, can I ask a question? So suppose you take k equal to 3, and suppose you take say 6 particle amplitude.
Right.
And there you are saying the Sijk don't have any obvious meaning. I mean, can't write in terms of Mandelstam, right?
For any general.
But now suppose I do a single soft theorem on the 6th particle.
Yes.
So your 6-point amplitude is a function of S123, S234, S345, etc. Right?
Right.
And if I do a single soft theorem, then I get a single soft factor times a 5-point amplitude in k equal to 3.
Right.
But the 5-point amplitude, for k equal to 3, you said can be written in terms of complementary Mandelstam, like S123 is same as S45.
Right.
So is it possible to I think kind of related to Ashoka, is it possible to use soft theorem to understand meaning of this Sij case? Like, because if you take nth particle soft,
yes,
then the n-1 amplitude and the n amplitude will have some Sij case which are not touched. Right. And then, so can you relate the two to kind of extract meaning of Sijk?
Yeah, but okay, I have not thought about this very deeply. But the thing is that when you are starting with 6-point amplitude, after you factorize, you are getting a 5-point amplitude. In that 5-point amplitude, you can relate the Mandelstam variable. But then the question is, what happens to the soft factor which has this nth dependence?
Yeah, I was thinking that the 6-point amplitude is a function of S123, S234, S34, like that, right?
Yeah. So as long as you have up to 5 levels, then you can relate. But in this case, say for example, you will take a soft limit in the 6th leg. Very much you have F612. Now F612, how to interpret in terms of CP1? I mean,
yeah, I cannot. But if I take 6 like soft, then maybe S1, 2, 3 I can relate now because
that is true. The 5-point amplitude that you have on the right hand side, that you can definitely relate.
No, but S1, 2, 3 is the argument on both sides. On the 6-point side also, S1, 2, 3 is the argument now of the amplitude. It's the same argument.
No, I guess, I mean, so here, so this is the factor. So n will be 6. So the argument will always have n. So S6, 1, 2, S6, 3, 4.
That's in the soft factor.
In the soft factor, yes.
But I'm saying that if you look at M6, the 6, sorry, I'm calling M6 the amplitude itself, like not the soft factor. So you have a 6-point amplitude.
Yes.
Which is a function of S1, 2, 3, S2, 3, 4, S3, 4, 5, etc. Right?
Right.
Okay, now I took particle 6 soft. So I get this soft factor times M5, which is also a function of S1, 2, 3.
That is right. Yeah, that will be completely a function of S1, 2, 3.
But S1, 2, 3, so S1, 2, 3 is the argument on both sides for the 6-point amplitude. Right. But on the 5-point amplitude side, S1, 2, 3 has a meaning. I mean, I thought you were saying. Yes. So but S1, 2, 3 is the same argument on both sides. So that means even on the 6-point particle side, S1, 2, 3 should have the same meaning. I mean, it's not a very precise question. Sorry, I was just wondering if this can be used to.
Okay. No, actually, okay. I haven't thought of this.
Okay.
I mean, can I make a comment?
Yeah.
I think there is so this thing is a mapping, like what we do from GR3,5 to GR2,5, for example. It's a mapping. Like Arnab was saying earlier, I don't think in GR3,5 we should interpret it as some combination of momentum variables. So what we know is that if you take the 6-point amplitude and take the soft limit, then the 5-point amplitude that you get has a mapping. But it's not clear whether that mapping holds like before taking the soft limit. But
the other variables you have not touched, right? Like S1, 2, 3 you have not touched. It has not gone soft or anything. That's why I was wondering. So both amplitudes are arbitrary functions of, functions of S1 to S1 to 3 is completely unconstrained, right?
Right.
That's why I was wondering. It's not a very precise question.
Yeah, maybe we can map. Yeah, I was just trying to say that it is more of a mapping than giving an interpretation at the level of GR3.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. Okay, so we have just found out this simultaneous soft limit in the adjacent legs, and then we can for k equal to 3, another configuration is left where the soft particle is in the non-adjacent, that is in the n-2 and n levels. And so this is a form, the integral form, where we have integration over sigma n and sigma n-2, the two soft punctures, and we have the delta functions with the arguments en and en-2, and this is the integrand. And so I have just marked the soft terms in the red. So these are the soft punctures. So what happens that what we have observed is that in the degenerate solutions, that is, if sigma n-2 and sigma n are very close to each other, that is, they go as sigma n-2 minus sigma n goes as tau, then we see the scaling of the integral, because then like only this term so this term scales as tau, 1 by tau square. So this term scales as 1 by tau square, and there will be a measure which is also contribute to 1 by tau square. So the full integral expression will scale as 1 by tau to the power 4. And we have computed the residue vanishes. So 1 by tau to the power 4 contribution coming from the degenerate solutions, okay, particularly sigma n-2 minus sigma n going to tau, that vanishes. So then the question is, can we look at the collinear case, that is when sigma n-2 and sigma n are collinear to another hard puncture, say sigma n-1. So in that case, we see that the integrand, when sigma n-2 and sigma n are collinear with the soft, with another hard puncture n-1, so in that case, this determinant, that scales as 1 by tau. So the scaling of the integrand goes as 1 by tau square. And then if we choose this parameterization, the idea is that in the collinear case, because of the change of variables, the measure was going as 1 by tau square. But if we can reduce the scaling in the denominator, sorry, if we can increase the scaling of tau in the denominator, instead of 1 by tau square, if we can have 1 by tau cube, so then the overall scaling will go as 1 by tau to the power 5. And for the collinear case, this parameterization is possible. For example, if we parameterize n minus 2, xn minus 2 as xn minus 1 plus alpha, which is a variable, times xn minus 1 minus xn minus 1, where xn minus 1 is the hard puncture. So one component of the inhomogeneous coordinate is scaled, is parameterized like this, and the other component, we add a small deformation tau xi here. And this small deformation will ensure that the determinant, this determinant will scale as tau. So in that case, the measure goes as 1 by tau cube, and the order of this full integration goes as 1 by tau to the power 5. So, and interestingly, 1 by tau to the power 5 scaling of this soft factor is consistent with, if we take a consecutive soft limit, the order is 1 by tau to the power 5. So indeed, the leading order contribution coming from this next to adjacent soft limit is 1 by tau to the power 5, and this can be achieved with this parameterization. And we yet don't have the full result for this soft factorization, but qualitative argument of the scaling is given here. This should convince that the scaling should be 1 by tau to the power 5. And in the non-degenerate case, this contributes to order 1 by tau to the power 4. And so here, instead of giving the full result, I have just given the boundaries where the non-zero residues can come from. So we are first doing sigma n minus 2 integration followed by sigma n. So the singularities in sigma n minus 2 can be in these places. Let's say when sigma n minus 2 goes to sigma n minus 3, it's a collision singularity, and then sigma n will have non-zero residues coming from these singularities when sigma n goes to sigma n minus 1, or sigma n goes to sigma 1, or sigma n is collinear with these these 4 punctures, I mean 2 each in one set, sigma n minus 3, sigma n minus 1, sigma 1, and sigma 2. Similarly, here we have another singularity, sigma n minus 2 goes to sigma n minus 1, and sigma n goes to sigma n minus 1, and sigma n collides with sigma 1. Similarly, this case, and then there's another case where sigma n minus 2 is collinear with these 2 puncture on one hand, and simultaneously it is collinear with these 2 punctures. That is, sigma n minus 2 lies at the intersection of these 2 straight lines joining sigma n minus 3, sigma n minus 4, and sigma n minus 1 and sigma n. And after that, we'll find that sigma n will have singularities in these places. Sigma n goes to sigma n minus 1, sigma n goes to sigma 1, or sigma n is collinear with sigma 1, sigma 2, and sigma n minus 3 and sigma n minus 1. And just to mention one thing, that if we are so these non-degenerate solutions contribute to 1 by tau to the power 4, and certainly it is subleading compared to the degenerate solution. And the order of the soft factor, as we just saw, that for this next to adjacent case is 1 by tau to the power 5, whereas the order of the soft factor in the previous case, that is when the soft limits were taking the adjacent limit, was 1 by tau to the power 6. Now, if we take the soft limit of the full amplitude, by full amplitude means if we take like sum over all possible orderings, and then all possible orderings will have like the 2 soft particles being soft at various levels. So indeed, we see that leading contribution comes from when the 2 particles are adjacent. So this will always be the result for the full soft factorization for the full amplitude, which is summed over all possible ordering. So I have almost reached the end. I'll just end with the summary. So here we have presented adjacent double soft limits of generalized Bayer joint scalar amplitudes for arbitrary k. and we have obtained a recursion relation which relates this double soft factor to lowercase single soft factor. For arbitrary k, carrying of the double soft factor goes as 1 by tau to the power 3 k minus 1 for the adjacent case. And if we are considering this next to adjacent, or for k equal to 3 next to adjacent, or for arbitrary k it is nk minus 1 to n minus k adjacent, so then the scaling will go as 1 by tau to the power 2 k minus 1. And if we have intermediate configurations like for k equal to 4, if we consider next to adjacent and so on, then they will fill up the, I mean, it is expected that they will fill up the intermediate scaling. So 1 by tau to the power k minus 1 poles are different from Weinberg poles. So the notions of locality and unitarity are not very well understood here. Studying soft theorems using planar collection of Feynman diagrams introduced by Borges and Cacciazzo may offer some insights. We have not looked at, but I mean, this can be future study for us. Now, connection to BCFW recursions and positive geometries, if possible, it will be interesting to find out. We expect that a result for this double soft can be generalized to multiple soft theorems for arbitrary k as well. And in k equal to 2 case, the soft limit study had one application, that is counting the number of solutions. We found the total number of solutions for the set of n scattering equations to be n minus 3 factorial by precisely taking the soft limit and then using some mathematical inductive method, and we found the result. So, and here for arbitrary k, the total number of solutions to the scattering equation is still not known for arbitrary n and arbitrary k. What is known is like few examples, few special cases where people have done numerical analysis, but in general, what is the total number, that is not known. And hopefully the study of these soft limits may shed some light in that. So with this, I will end the talk, and thank you for your patience.
Okay, we had few questions. Any more questions? So I can ask one question. So the final result you showed, which was SK in terms of SK minus 1, this one. I mean, this is already kind of very different from usual quantum field theories, right? I mean, soft factor in a theory with at k, say, no, is in terms of some soft factor of k minus 1. I mean, it's not something we see in usual QFTs. This kind of
right, that is true. I mean, for example, for gravity, but in the usual case, I mean, we don't go to higher k also.
Yeah, no, k equal to 2 is the usual QFT, I meant. Yeah,
so k equal to 2, so what we can claim that if we are looking at k equal to 2, so then this is just trivial.
No, I meant that, like, I'm thinking of different case being different theories.
Right.
So I'm saying in usual QFTs, it don't happen that like soft factor of one theory is.
Okay, yes, that is true. Yeah, so you're saying that like two soft factor giving rise to one double soft factor, unless they are non-adjacent.
No, like different theory, like SK minus is soft factor for different theory, right? I mean,
okay, that is true.
So kind of unusual feature of these theories.
I see. Yeah. Okay. So you are considering these k minus 1 and k to be different theories. Right?
Yeah.
That is true. Right.
Any other questions? So I know with this entire analysis, PI is never featured, only S is, like you don't.
I mean, we will run into trouble if we try to interpret very straightforwardly this Sijk as soft factors as the Mandelstam variable.
Yeah, but I wanted to ask about Yang-Mills. Any other theory you need in the Pfaffian, you explicitly need momenta for Yang-Mills CHY, for example. Like, so if you wanted to generalize Yang-Mills.
Yeah. I mean, that is true. That you're saying that how to generalize this.
Yeah, like this BAB. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean,
but see, AAB is SAB if we interpret like
no,
this.
that's okay.
SAB.
AAB is okay, but like,
AAB can be generalized, but
yeah.
B, this polarization, that is non.
Yeah, CAB for example.
CAB.
Yeah.
But actually, I mean, we can look for one more generalization. That is, we know that if we take only this part, AAB, and they correspond to some theory, and I don't remember exactly, but probably they correspond to some Born-Infeld, I mean, Maxwell coupled to scalar theory, something. This where only this AAB appears, this part. So that probably can be generalized. I mean, that can be another example of this generalized by adjoint amplitude.
I see. I mean, maybe abstractly even B can be, capital B can be generalized, but C seems very tricky. C is epsilon dot K.
Right.
Oh, thanks. Any more questions? Okay, if not, let's unmute and thank Arnab for a very nice talk.
Thank you.